And he started in, and when he read Moby-Dick, he just was astonished at how many times in the book it seemed as if he was reading poetry. And so he read it through again with the purpose of finding these hidden treasures that already existed in Moby-Dick. And he had started to write poetry himself, and so he began to take out these poems and arrange them in lines and so forth. And this started the whole project. And he worked on it for several years, and then he got into other projects and so forth. But he was able to get back into it and see that it was going to be published, see what the pages were going to look like, and feel very excited about that it was going to make one of his dreams come true. And he died a year ago, June. And so I just brought him here today so he could be here with us. I will introduce the readers for today. And Chris Busa, who is here, and publisher of this book. And this is Martin Desht, and he's here from Santa Fe. He's a writer, photographer, very old friend of mine, and also of Steve's. And it's a real honor to have him here with us, and you can look forward possibly next summer that Marty will have an exhibit here and do a program. Alan Feldman, who probably has known Steve longer than anyone in this room except for his son. And Alan always said about Steve, he's the most creative person I ever met in my whole life. And for example, we come over for supper, and so Steve brought with him an 8-foot fork, which he had designed and carved and cut out of plywood and painted white, and he comes marching in, plants it in the garden. Today we're here for dinner. You know, he did things like that. And Barry Hellman is the only reader who was not able to be with us here today, and he's very sad about that. But he was part of the poetry group that Steve was in for many years. Kathy Jackson of Truro, who is also a very dear friend and an artist and musician and neighbor. And Steve and I spent many hours over at the Jacksons' house, and Kathy and her father, Broward, who was approximately Steve's age, and the two of them would just go off arm in arm, these tall, gorgeous old men, you know, whispering to each other's ears and talking about all kinds of things. So Kathy, it's wonderful to have her here. Anna Nielsen, who you know if you come to this library, she directs the youth services here. And I wanted her to read because Steve Durkee, I think, was not so secretly madly in love with Anna. And he said, I'm going to the library, I want to see Anna. I have to ask her about this and this and this and this. And Susan Quigley, who...
He was not madly.
No.
You're talking about Greek Club.
And Susie, one of the original people in the Greek Club, which went on for decades, and Steve was involved with that. And so Susie and Steve knew each other for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, long, long time. And Margaret Phillips, who was a member of my memoirs and the poetry group and the summer poetry group and all these things that Steve was also involved in. So they knew each other through their common interest in poetry. From here, and before we begin, I'm going to read a very brief passage from Moby-Dick. In this passage is a hidden treasure. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you will hear it in the course of the presentation this afternoon. I wanted you to get sort of the feel for Steve's process. So Melville says, but the sperm whale's food is far beneath the surface, and there he cannot spout, even if he would. Besides, if you regard him very closely and time him with your watch, you will find that when unmolested, there is an undeviating rhyme between the periods of his jets and the ordinary periods of respiration. But why pester one with all this reasoning on the subject? Speak out. You have seen him spout. Then declare what the spout is. Can you not tell water from the air? My dear sir, in this world it is not so easy to settle these plain things. I have ever found your plain things the naughtiest of all. And as for this whale spout, you might almost stand in it and yet be undecided as to what it is precisely. The central body of it is hidden in the snowy, sparkling mist enveloping it. And how you can certainly tell whether any water falls from it when you are close enough to a whale to get a close view of his spout, he is in a prodigious commotion, the water cascading all around him. And if at such times you should think that you really perceived drops of moisture in the spout, how do you know that they are not merely condensed from its vapor? Or how do you know that they are not those identical drops superficially lodged in the spout hole fissure, which is countersunk into the summit of the whale's head? For even when tranquilly swimming through the midday sea in a calm, with his elevated hump sun-dried as a dromedary's in the desert, even then the whale always carries a small basin of water on his head, as under a blazing sun you will sometimes see a cavity in a rock filled up with rain. Here are some more of the hidden treasures that Steve Durkee found. November in my soul.
Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it's damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off. Then I account it high time to go to sea as soon as I can.
Able-bodied seaman.
Well then, however the old sea captains may order me about, however they may thump and punch me about, I have the satisfaction of knowing that it is all right. That everybody else is, one way or other, served in much the same way, either in a physical or metaphysical point of view, that is. And so the universal thump is passed around, and all hands should rub each other's shoulder blades and be content.
They bloom like their own roses.
And The women of New Bedford, they bloom like their own red roses. But roses only bloom in summer, whereas the fine carnation of their cheeks is perennial as sunlight in the seventh heavens. Elsewhere match that bloom of theirs ye cannot, save in Salem, where they tell me the young girls breathe such musk, their sailor sweethearts smell them miles offshore, as though they were drawing nigh the odorous Moluccas instead of the puritanic sands.
We are too much like oysters.
Yes, there is death in this business of whaling, a speechlessly quick, chaotic bundling of a man into eternity. But what then? Methinks we have hugely mistaken this matter of life and death. Methinks that what they call my shadow here on earth is my true substance. Methinks that in looking at things spiritual, we are too much like oysters, observing the sun through the water and thinking that thick water the thinnest of hair. Methinks my body is but the lees of my better being. In fact, take my body who will. Take it, I say. It is not me.
Ishmael tries a pagan friend.
As I sat there in that now lonely room, the fire burning low in that mild stage when, after its first intensity has warmed the air, it then only glows to be looked at. The evening shades and phantoms gathering round the casements and peering in upon us silent, solitary twain, the storm booming without in solemn swells. I began to be sensible of strange feelings. I felt a melting in me. No more my splintered heart and maddened hand were turned against the wolfish world. This soothing savage had redeemed it. There he sat, its very indifference speaking a nature in which there lurked no civilized hypocrisies and bland deceits. Wild he was, a very sight of sights to see. Yet I began to feel myself mysteriously drawn towards him. And those same things that would have repelled most others, they were the very magnets that thus drew me. I'll try a pagan friend, thought I, since Christian kindness has proved but hollow courtesy.
The sea permits no records.
How I snuffed that Tartar air, how I spurned that turnpike earth, that common highway all over dented with the marks of slavish heels and hoofs, and turned me to admire the magnanimity of the sea, which will permit no records.
The tripods.
Fishiest of all fishy places was the tripods, which well deserved its name. For the pots there were always boiling chowders. Chowder for breakfast, chowder for dinner, and chowder for supper, till you began to look for fish bones coming through your clothes.
Rare old Pequod.
You may have seen many a quaint craft in your day, for aught I know. Square-toed luggers, mountainous Japanese junks, butterbox galleots, and what not. But take my word for it, you never saw such a rare old craft as this same rare old Pequod. She was a thing of trophies, a cannibal of a craft, tricking herself forth in the chaste bones of her enemies. All round her unpaneled open bulwarks were garnished like one continuous jaw with the long, sharp teeth of the sperm whale, inserted there for pins to fasten her old hempen thews and tendons to. The helmsman who steered by that tiller in a tempest felt like the Tartar when he holds back his fiery steed by clutching its jaw. A noble craft, but somehow a most melancholy. All noble things are touched with that.
The starred and stately nights.
The starred and stately knights seemed haughty dames in jeweled velvets, nursing at home in lonely pride the memory of their absent conquering earls, the golden helmeted sons. For sleeping man, 'twas hard to choose between such winsome days and such seducing nights.
With one half-throttled shriek, you drop.
There is no life in thee now, except that rocking life imparted by a gently rolling ship, by her barred for the sea, by the sea, from the inscrutable tides of God. But while this sleep, this dream is on ye, move your foot or hand an inch, slip your hold at all, and your identity comes back in hard. And perhaps at midday, in the fairest of weather, with one half-throttled shriek, you drop through that transparent air into the summer sea, no more to rise forever. Heed it well, ye pantheists.
Ahab speaks.
How can the prisoner reach outside except by thrusting through the wall? To me, the white rail is that wall shoved near to me. Sometimes I think there's naught beyond, but 'tis enough. He tasks me, he heaps me. I see him outrageous strength, with an inscrutable malice sinewing it. That inscrutable thing is chiefly what I hate, and be the white whale agent, or be the white whale principal, I will wreak that hate upon him. Talk not of blasphemy, man. I'll strike the sun if it insulted me.
They danced the night. This we all do together because we're all gathered on the deck of the Pequod to have a little joy.
Hist, boys, let's have a jig or two before we ride to anchor in the blanket bay. What say ye? There comes the other watch. Stand by all legs. Pip, little Pip, hurrah with your tambourine.
Don't know where it is.
Beat thy belly then, and wag thy ears. Jig it, men, I say, Mary's the word, hurrah. Damn me, won't you dance? Form now, Indian file, and gallop into the double shuffle. Show yourselves, legs, legs.
I don't like your floor, matey. It's too springy to my taste. I'm used to ice floors. I'm sorry to throw cold water on the subject, but excuse me.
Me too. Where's your girls? Who but a fool would take his left hand by his right and say to himself, how do you do? Partners. I must have partners.
Aye, girls in the green. Then I'll hop with ye, yea, turn grasshopper.
Well, well, ye sulkies, there's plenty more of us. Hold corn when you may, I say. All legs go to harvest soon. Ah, here comes the music, now for it.
Here you are, Pip, and there's the windlass bits. Up you mount. Now, boys, go it, Pip, bang it, bellboy, ring wing it, dig it, stig it, quig it. Bellboy, make fireflies, break the jinglers.
Jinglers, you say? Oh, there goes another, dropped off. I pounded so.
I wonder whether those jolly lads bethink them of what they are dancing over. I'll dance over your grave, I will. That's the bitterest threat of your night women that beat headwinds round corners. Oh, Christ. To think of the green navvies and the green-skulled crews. Well, belike the whole world's a ball, as you scholars have it. And so 'tis right to make one ballroom of it. Dance on, lads. You're young. I was once.
What tenderness there is in that preliminary touch.
I cannot demonstrate it, but it seems to me that in the whale, the sense of touch is concentrated in the tail. For in this respect, there is delicacy in it only equaled by the daintiness of the elephant's trunk. For as the mightiest elephant is but a terrier to Leviathan, so compared with Leviathan's tail, his trunk is but a stalk of lily. The most direful blow from the elephant's trunk were as the playful tap of a fan, compared with the measureless crust of the sperm whale's ponderous flukes, which in repeated instances have one after the other hurled entire boats with their oars and their crews in the air, very much as an Indian juggler tosses his balls.
A Catskill eagle in some souls.
There is a wisdom that is woe, but there is a woe that is madness. And there is a Catskill eagle in some souls that can alike dive down into the blackest gorges and soar out of them again and become invisible in the sunny spaces. And even if he forever flies within the gorge, that gorge is in the mountains. So that even in his lowest swoop, the mountain eagle is still higher than birds upon the plain, even though they soar.
There she blows.
There she blows, and away they fly to fight another whale and go through the whole weary thing again. Oh, my friends, but this is man-killing, yet this is life. For hardly have we mortals, by long toilings, extracted from this world's vast bulk its small but valuable sperm, and then, with weary patience, cleansed ourselves from its defilements and learned to live here in clean tabernacles of the soul. Hardly is this done when there she blows. The ghost has spouted up, and away we sail to fight some other world and go through young life's old routines again.
Now this doubloon,
word, nor though placed amongst a ruthless crew, and every hour passed by ruthless hands, and through the livelong nights shrouded with thick darkness, which might cover any pilfering approach. Nevertheless, every sunrise found this doubloon revered. Found this doubloon where the sunset left it last. For it was set apart and sanctified to one awe-striking end. And however wanton in their sailor ways, one and all, the mariners revered it as the white whale's talisman. Sometimes they talked it over in the weary watch of night, wondering whose it would be at last, and whether he would ever live to spend it.
Give me a condor's quill.
Give me a condor's quill. Give me Vesuvius's crater for an inkstand. Friends, hold my arms, for in the mere act of penning my thoughts of the Leviathan, they weary me and make me faint with their outreaching and comprehensiveness of sweep, as if to include the whole circle of the sciences and all generations of whales and men and mastodons, past, present, and to come with all the revolving panoramas of empires on Earth and throughout the whole universe, not excluding the suburbs. Such and so magnifying is the virtue of a large and liberal theme. We expand to its bulk.
Sweet mystery. And meet it is that over these sea pastures, wide rolling watery prairies and potter's fields of all 4 continents, the waves should rise and fall, ebb and flow unceasingly. For here, millions of mixed shades and shadows, drowned dreams, somnambulisms, reveries, all that we call our lives and souls lie dreaming, dreaming, still tossing like slumberers in their beds, the ever-rolling waves, but made so by their restlessness. The pensive air. It was a clear steel blue day. The firmaments of air and sea were hardly separable in that all-pervading azure. Only the pensive air was transparently pure and soft, with a woman's look, and the robust and manlike sea heaved with long, strong, lingering swells, as Samson's chest in his sleep. Old Ahab's close-coiled woe.
Tied up and twisted, gnarled and knotted with wrinkles, haggardly firm and unyielding, his eyes glowing like coals that still glow in the ashes of ruin. Untottering Ahab stood forth in the clearness of the morn, lifting his splintered helmet of a brow at the fair girl's forehead of heaven. O immortal infancy and innocency of the azure, invisible winged creatures that frolic all around, sweet childhood of air and sky. How oblivious were ye of old Ahab's close-coiled woe.
One wee drop.
From beneath his slouched hat, Ahab dropped a tear into the sea. Nor did all the Pacific contain such wealth as that one wee drop.
Gentle joyousness.
A gentle joyousness, a mighty mildness of repose in swiftness invested the gliding whale. Not the white bull Jupiter swimming away with ravished Europa clinging to his graceful horns, his lovely, leering eyes sideways intent upon the maid, with smooth, bewitching fleetness rippling straight for the nuptial bower in Crete. Not Jove, not that great majesty supreme, did surpass the glorified white whale as he so divinely swam.
The mad fiend himself is after ye.
Aye, aye, cried Stubb. I knew it. You can't escape. blow on and split your spout. Oh, whale, the mad fiend himself is after ye. Blow your trump, blister your lungs. Ahab will dam off your blood as the miller shuts his water gate upon the stream.
There she breaches, was the cry, as in his immeasurable bravados the white whale tossed himself salmon-like to heaven. So suddenly seen in the blue plain of the sea, and relieved against the still bluer margin of the sky, the spray that he raised for the moment intolerably glittered and glared like a glacier, and stood there gradually fading and fading away from its first sparkling intensity to the dim mistiness of an advancing shower in a veil.
A summer house to the angels. What a lovely day again. Were it a new-made world and made for a summer house to the angels, and this morning the first of its throwing open to them, a fairer day could not dawn upon that world. My God, stand by me now.
The whale, up helm, up helm. Oh, all ye sweet powers of air, now hug close to me. Let not Starbuck die, if die he must, in a woman's fainting fit. Up helm, I say, ye fools, the jaw, the jaw! Is this the end of all my bursting prayers, all my lifelong fidelities? Oh, Ahab, loathe thy work. Steady, helmsman, steady. Nay, nay, up helm again. He turns to meet us. Oh, his unappeasable brow that drives on towards one whose duty tells him he cannot depart. My God, stand by me now.
The great shroud of the sea.
And so, the bird of heaven, with archangelic shrieks, and his imperial beak thrust upwards, and his whole captive form folded in the flag of Ahab, went down with his ship, which, like Satan, would not sink to hell till she had dragged a living part of heaven along with her, and helmeted herself with it. Now small fowls flew screaming over the yet yawning gulf. A sullen white surf beat against its steep sides. Then all collapsed, and the great shroud of the sea rolled on as it rolled 5,000 years ago.
You've heard about 1/3 of the lyrical jewels Steve Durkee found in Moby-Dick. Consider this the beginning. As Steve says in his letter to Mr. Melville, I hope that my small book of found poems will make many more people eager to read your powerful book. So, consider the magical moment when you will open this book, all ears, and begin at the beginning, chapter 1, Loomings.
Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul,
Whenever I find myself
And whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from stepping deliberately into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for pistol and ball. With a philosophical flourish, Cato throws himself upon his sword. I quietly take to the ship. There is nothing surprising in this. If they but knew it, almost all men in their degree, sometime or other, cherish very nearly the same feelings towards the ocean with me. Round of applause for our gang.
I want us all to consider this a celebration first of the insatiable creative spirit of Stephen Durkee. And to celebrate the publication of Hidden Treasures. And to celebrate our wonderful Wellfleet Library, such a treasure in our community and beyond.